Before we start, tell me where you're listening from. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next tale. I wasn't supposed to notice things like that anymore. I'd sworn off noticing, especially noticing men who looked temporary, which this one absolutely did. With his oversized suitcase covered in airline stickers and a winter coat. That wasn't nearly warm enough for Seattle rain. But there he was, taking up way too much space in that tiny elevator. And there I was, pretending my grocery bag needed adjusting, while my pulse did something ridiculous. He was standing in the elevator with damp hair pushed back off his forehead, breathing hard like he'd been running. And when he smiled at me, something in my chest forgot how to work properly. I used to think Christmas in Seattle was only pretty if you were looking at it through glass, from inside a coffee shop with fogged-up windows, from behind the big lobby doors of my apartment building, from the bus watching the lights blur into streaks as the rain chased itself down the glass. Outside meant cold and wet and the risk of standing somewhere alone, while couples walked past with their fingers laced together, laughing like they knew something I didn't. So that December I kept my holidays small. Work, groceries, Netflix, and emails from my mom, asking if I was sure I didn't want to fly home. My apartment became my entire world, the one bedroom on the 6th floor, with the noisy heater and the view of a gray alley, and one stubborn string of Christmas lights someone had duct taped around a fire escape. I wasn't planning on the Christmas Eve guest, and I definitely wasn't planning on how he would make me feel. It happened the second week of December. I stepped into the elevator after a long day at work, my arms full of grocery bags that were cutting into my fingers, my hair still damp from the walk between my car and the building. The doors were halfway closed when a hand shot through the gap, forcing them back open. He stumbled in, breathing hard, dragging a suitcase that looked like it had survived too many airport carousels. His dark hair was pushed back from his face, slightly messy, and water droplets clung to his jacket collar. When he looked up and saw me, he flashed an apologetic smile that went straight through my carefully constructed defenses. "Sorry," he said, his voice warm and a little breathless. "Didn't mean to tackle the doors like that." He had one of those smiles that felt like it came with a built-in dimmer switch. Soft instead of blinding, the kind that made you feel for just a second like you were the only person in the room. His eyes were dark, almost black in the elevator's fluorescent lighting. And when they met mine, I felt heat creep up my neck. "No problem," I managed, shifting my grocery bag closer to my legs. "So he'd have room. They deserve it. Half the time they close on me first." He laughed, a low sound that echoed in the small space. And I liked it way too much, way too fast. We both stared at the numbers lighting up above the doors, that awkward elevator silence settling between us. Except it didn't feel entirely awkward. It felt charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. "6?" he asked, nodding at the button I'd already pressed. "Yeah." He lifted his hand and pressed 7, his fingers long and capable looking. I noticed the way his jacket stretched across his shoulders when he moved, the way his jaw was sharp enough to be distracting. "New?" I asked, because I had never seen him before, and I knew almost everyone in the building by sight. That's what happens when you hide inside a place long enough. You get familiar with all the background characters. Kind of, he said, turning to look at me. "I'm staying for a bit, my cousin's place, he's traveling for the holidays." There it was, temporary stamped all over those words. Like a warning label I should have paid more attention to. "Cool," I said, keeping my voice neutral even though something in my chest tightened. "Welcome to our very glamorous concrete box." He smiled again, wider this time. "I like it already. Smells like laundry detergent and coffee." "That's just floor 5, I said. "There's a guy down there who runs his espresso machine like a religion." He laughed again, and I felt that sound settle somewhere, warm and dangerous inside me. The elevator dinged at 6, and I stepped toward the doors, telling myself this was it. Just a normal neighbor interaction, nothing more. "This is me," I said. "Enjoy the glamorous box." "I'm Leo, by the way," he said quickly, shifting his suitcase handle so he could offer his hand. I hesitated for half a second, then reached out and shook it. His hand was warm, his grip firm but gentle, and when our palms touched, I felt a spark of something electric run up my arm. I pulled back faster than I should have. "Naomi," I said. "Nice to meet you, Naomi." The door slid shut between us, and I stood there in the hallway for a full 10 seconds, staring at the closed elevator doors, Like they held answers to questions I wasn't ready to ask yet. I told myself that he was just a guest. Just passing through like everyone else seemed to. But the thing about telling yourself someone is temporary is that you start seeing them everywhere. 2 days later, I literally ran into him in the mailroom. I turned the corner too fast, juggling my phone and a stack of Amazon packages, and slammed right into his chest. My phone slid across the floor, one of my boxes skidded toward the recycling bin, and his hands caught my arms to steady me. "Whoa," he said, and I could feel the heat of his palms through my sweater, could smell whatever cologne he wore. Something clean and woodsy with a hint of citrus. That made me want to lean closer instead of pulling away. "Sorry," I blurted, my cheeks burning. "These boxes have a death wish." "I think they're just trying to escape capitalism," he replied, still holding my arms, his thumbs resting just above my elbows. I laughed before I could stop myself. "Aren't we all?" He bent down to pick up my runaway box, then my phone, handing them both back with that same soft smile from the elevator. His fingers brushed mine for just a second when I took them, and something warm flickered under my skin, like the first sip of chai on a cold morning. "What floor are you on again?" he asked. 6. "I keep forgetting there are people above me," he said. "Feels like I'm at the top of the world on 7. "You're not," I said, shifting my packages in my arms. "There's the roof, right? I saw the sign for it. Looks nice." "It is best part of the building when it's not raining sideways." I hesitated, then asked the question I told myself I didn't care about. "You here for long?" "Through Christmas," he said. "Maybe a bit after. I'm helping my cousin with some stuff while he's gone." "Through Christmas, a bit after. So not long. Not long enough for anything real." I felt something sink in my chest. Disappointment I had no right to feel. "Cool," I said too quickly. "Enjoy the mailroom. It's our most festive feature." He glanced at the wall where someone had taped up a crooked paper snowflake. "Yeah," he said with a grin. "Can really feel the holiday magic in here." I wish I could say that was the end of it. But the universe has a sense of humor, especially during the holidays. Over the next week, I ran into Leo everywhere. In the lobby as I came in soaked from the rain, and he was shaking water off his hair, laughing at something the front desk manager had said. In the laundry room where he held up a pair of shrunken socks, and asked me if I believed in reincarnation, because his old socks had clearly been reborn as doll clothes. In the hallway where I opened my door at the exact same time he did, and our eyes met over the gap like we'd both been caught doing something secret. Each time, the encounter stretched a little longer. A joke here, a shared complaint about the ancient heater, a conversation about how Seattle rain didn't fall like normal rain, but drifted sideways like it was undecided. He was easy to talk to, too easy, and that was the problem. Because I knew better than to get attached to people who were just visiting. My dad had visited my life for years, in and out of holidays and birthdays and school concerts, and then one year he just didn't. My last relationship had followed a similar script, a man who swore he was in this for the long haul, right up until the long haul got inconvenient. And he moved to California with someone who didn't come, with baggage or abandonment issues or 2 cats, and a savings account he couldn't raid. So I'd made a rule, no more temporary people. If someone walked in with a built-in expiration date, they stayed in the high nice weather category, nothing more. The problem was, Leo kept stepping outside that category. With every conversation, with every accidental touch in the hallway, with every smile that made my stomach flip. One evening a week before Christmas, I found him sitting on the lobby couch, staring at the building's tiny fake tree. The tree looked like it had given up halfway through decorating itself. A few silver ornaments hung in clumps, the lights were uneven, and someone had stuck a crooked paper star at the top. "You look like you're judging it," I said, pausing on my way to the elevator. He looked up, and his whole face brightened when he saw me. "I was just thinking it looks like it did its best with what it had." "That's depressingly relatable," I said. He laughed softly. "Yeah, a little." I hesitated, then sat on the other end of the couch, leaving space between us even though part of me wanted to sit closer. Close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. "Do you always sit and philosophize about lobby trees?" I asked. "Only on Tuesdays," he said, "and only when I'm avoiding going back upstairs." I tilted my head, avoiding what? He thought about that for a moment, his expression going softer, more vulnerable. "The quiet, I guess." I knew that feeling too well, the quiet could be so loud, especially during the holidays when everyone else seemed to have somewhere warm and full of people to be. What about you? He asked, turning to look at me. What are you avoiding? Mail, I said, and my mother's holiday guilt trip. He winced sympathetically. That sounds intense. She sent me a link to a therapist who specializes in fear of commitment. I said, using my fingers as air quotes, which is rude on a lot of levels. Maybe she just wants you to have your own lobby tree, he said, gesturing at the sad little tree in front of us. You know, some person you actually like, a lopsided star, the whole thing. His words went under my skin in a way I didn't like, cutting too close to truths I'd been avoiding. I stood up too quickly, my heart beating faster than it should. Well, I said, forcing lightness into my voice. I should go face the email monster. Hey, Naomi, he said before I reached the elevator. Yeah? I'm glad we keep running into each other. Something in his voice made my heart stumble, made my breath catch in my throat. The way he said it wasn't casual. It was deliberate, weighted with meaning I wasn't sure I was ready to unpack. Yeah, I said softly, honestly, me too. Have you ever felt that slow, quiet tug towards someone you're absolutely sure you should not let yourself want? The building sent out an email about a Christmas Eve gathering on the rooftop deck. Cozy holiday vibes, the subject line promised, which translated roughly to lukewarm cocoa, someone's Bluetooth speaker, and store-brand cookies. My first instinct was to skip it. It's easier to be alone when you're not surrounded by people pretending they aren't. But I also knew myself well enough to know that if I stayed inside my apartment, I would end up scrolling through other people's holiday photos, spiraling into the familiar loop of everyone else is doing this better than me. So on Christmas Eve, I put on my nicest sweater, a soft burgundy one that made my skin look warmer, wrapped my scarf around my neck and took the stairs up to the roof. The air hit me first, cold and sharp, carrying the smell of rain and city and something faintly sweet from the bakery down the block. String lights zigzagged over the deck, reflecting off wet wood, and someone had set up a folding table with paper cups and a slow cooker of hot chocolate. A small crowd had gathered, clustered in groups, and I recognized some of my neighbors by their dogs or their laugh. I scanned the space automatically, telling myself I wasn't looking for anyone in particular, even though I absolutely was. Of course he was there. Leo stood near the edge of the deck, hands in his pockets, watching the city below. The lights of downtown Seattle glowed in the distance, soft by low clouds. He looked like he belonged there, like the roof had been built just to frame him against that skyline. He wore a dark jacket that fit him perfectly, and even from across the deck, I could see the sharp line of his jaw, the way his hair caught the string lights. He turned as if he'd felt me looking, and when our eyes met, his whole face lit up. Hey, he said, walking over to me, you made it. Apparently, I said, trying to sound casual even though my heart was doing something complicated. I came for the gourmet cookies. They taste like regret, he said with a grin, but the view makes up for it. We stood side by side, leaning on the railing, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him, even through our coats. Rain misted the air, not quite committing to falling, and the city stretched out below us like a constellation of gold and white lights. This is my favorite part of the building, he said quietly. Feels like the rest of the world is down there and up here is just us. Dangerous words. Words that made my chest tighten, with want and fear in equal measure. I guess, I said, trying to keep my tone breezy. You picked a good time to visit. The holidays always make the city look softer. He was quiet for a beat, and when I glanced at him, he was looking at me instead of the view, his expression unreadable. I'm starting to think I didn't just visit, he said. I frowned, my pulse picking up. What do you mean? He opened his mouth, then closed it again, like he was rearranging words in his head. Naomi, he said finally, can I ask you something? My heart thudded hard against my ribs, maybe, I said. He smiled slightly at that, then gestured toward a corner of the deck, where someone had set up a couple of folding chairs facing the water. They're doing fireworks by the waterfront in a bit, he said. I thought maybe we could watch them together, just us, away from all this. The simplicity of it was what did me in, because for a second, a full dangerous second, I could see it. Me sitting beside him, our shoulders brushing as fireworks bloomed over the water, the edges of my life softening, Just enough to let someone else in. It felt so possible, so easy, and that scared me more than anything. I don't think that's a good idea, I said quietly. His face shifted, confusion flickering first. Then hurt he tried to hide, but couldn't quite manage. Why not? He asked gently. Because, I said, swallowing hard, you're leaving. He blinked. What? You said you're just here through Christmas. I reminded him. My voice coming out sharper than I intended, a bit after, you're temporary. He studied me for a long quiet moment, like he was trying to see past my words to the fear behind them. And I hated how exposed that made me feel. Naomi, he said softly, you don't even know how long I'm staying. That's kind of the point, I said, wrapping my arms around myself. I don't want to start something with an expiration date. He looked like he was holding back a dozen things he wanted to say. His jaw tight, his hands curling into fists in his pockets. I was just asking you to watch fireworks, he said slowly. I know, I murmured, and I can't. I stepped back, putting distance between us even though every part of me wanted to step closer instead. You should ask someone who isn't like me, I said. Someone who can do casual holiday moments without overthinking them to death. Hey, he said, taking a half step toward me. I didn't say I wanted casual. That sentence landed somewhere deep and fragile, cracking something open inside me that I'd been trying to keep closed. I'm sorry, I said, backing away again, my eyes stinging. I have to go. Naomi, he said. But I was already turning, already walking away, my heart pounding so loud. It drowned out the faint sound of music drifting behind me. Inside my apartment, I locked the door and leaned my back against it, trying not to think about the way his eyes had looked, confused and hurt and something like understanding all at once. I told myself I'd done the right thing, better to leave early than be left. The rain intensified outside, tapping against the windows like restless fingers, and I stood there in the dark wondering why doing the right thing felt so much like making a mistake. What would you have done in that moment? Walked away like I did or stayed and risked the hurt? Christmas morning woke me with gray light and the smell of coffee I hadn't made yet. I hadn't slept well. My dreams kept looping back to the roof. To the way Leo had said I didn't say I wanted casual. To the hurt in his eyes when I walked away. I padded into the kitchen, turned on the kettle, and tried to focus on the simple ritual of making coffee. Scoop, pour, stir. The familiar warmth wrapping around me, like a blanket I could control. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. Merry Christmas, honey. Call me when you're awake. I love you. I texted back a quick heart emoji, promising myself I'd call later. But first I needed to get my head straight. Needed to stop replaying last night over and over, like a song stuck on repeat. As I passed my front door on the way to the couch, something on the floor made me pause. An envelope, thin and white, slipped just under the edge of the door. My name was written on the front in messy looping handwriting. That made my heart do something complicated. For a second, I just stared at it, then I picked it up, my fingers trembling slightly as I opened it. Inside was a single note folded in half, and I unfolded it with careful fingers, my breath catching in my throat. As I read, Naomi, I'm sorry if I pushed too hard last night. I get that trust doesn't come easy, it doesn't for me either. For what it's worth, I'm not leaving yet. The plan changed. I'll be here for the next few months at least, longer than you think. If you ever want to talk or watch fireworks late, or just complain about the lobby tree trying its best, I'm on 7 door with the crooked wreath. No pressure, just an open door. Leo. P.S. Merry Christmas. I read the note 3 times before my brain caught up with my heart. Months, he was staying for months. The rule I'd built, no more temporary people, didn't quite apply the same way anymore. Not when temporary suddenly stretched into something that could actually fit. Real conversations, real connection, real whatever this was. It didn't magically erase my fear or rewrite my history, but it did something quieter and more dangerous. It gave me a choice. I walked to the window, looking out at the thin layer of snow frosting the roofs, the faint reflection of my face in the glass. Someone down the street had hung a giant inflatable Santa on their balcony, and he wobbled in the wind, stubborn and ridiculous. I thought about Leo's hands catching my arms in the mailroom, about his quiet voice in the lobby saying he was glad we kept running into each other, about the way he'd looked at me on the roof, Like he was trying to offer something he didn't know had a name yet. I thought about the note in my hand. The careful way he'd written no pressure. The fact that he'd left the choice entirely up to me. My heart beat a little faster. I could stay inside my apartment like I always did, letting fear write the ending for me. Or I could pick up my mug, walk down the hall, and knock on a door with a crooked wreath. For the first time in a long time, the not knowing felt less like doom, and more like standing on the edge of something possible. Like watching the sky right before fireworks start, holding your breath, waiting to see what lights up. I set down my coffee mug, grabbed my keys, and before I could talk myself out of it, I walked out into the hallway. The building was quiet, most people still asleep or with family, and my footsteps echoed softly on the carpet as I climbed the stairs to 7. His door was easy to find. The crooked wreath hung slightly off-center, made of fake pine branches and red ribbon. I stood there for a full minute, my hand raised to knock, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then I knocked. 3 soft raps that sounded too loud in the quiet hallway. For a moment, nothing happened, and I thought maybe he wasn't home. Maybe he'd gone out, maybe I'd missed my chance. Then the door opened, and there he was. Leo stood in the doorway wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, his hair messy like he'd just woken up, his eyes widening when he saw me. For a second, neither of us said anything. We just stood there looking at each other, the air between us charged with everything we hadn't said yet. "Hi," I said finally, my voice coming out softer than I intended. "Hi," he said back, and a slow smile spread across his face, the kind that made my knees feel weak. "I got your note," I said, holding it up like evidence. "Yeah?" His eyes searched mine, hope and caution mixing in equal measure. "Yeah," I said, and I was thinking, maybe we could watch those fireworks after all, even if we're a day late. His smile widened, and he stepped back, holding the door open. "I'd like that," he said a lot. I stepped inside, and he closed the door behind me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. We didn't watch fireworks that morning. There weren't any to watch. But we sat on his couch with mugs of coffee, talking about everything and nothing, about his plans to stay longer, about my fear of people leaving, about how sometimes the best things happen when you stop running from them. And when he reached for my hand, slow and deliberate, giving me every chance to pull away, I didn't. I laced my fingers through his and held on, feeling the warmth of his palm against mine, feeling something inside me finally start to unclench. Maybe some people do leave, but maybe some people stay. And maybe the only way to find out which kind someone is to let them in long enough to show you. What do you think I should do next? Have you ever had someone surprise you by staying when you expected them to leave? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next tale. And if you have your own story about holiday timing, almost moments, or second chances, share it in the comments. I'm listening. Grab a cup, your daily dose of delight.